I was sitting on the edge of our old, saggy couch in the tiny living room Emily and I shared. The afternoon sun was slipping through the dusty blinds, lighting up the air with little flecks of dust that drifted like they had nowhere to be. The room felt different lately, like something invisible had settled between us. Emily was pacing behind the coffee table, arms crossed tight across her chest like she was trying to hold something in. I need more, she said, her voice shaky and tense, like she'd been keeping this bottled up. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I can't keep pretending, she added. I looked up at her, tapping my fingers nervously against my knee. Are you saying you want to bring someone else into our relationship? I asked, half hoping I misunderstood her. You really think that's going to make us stronger? I said. She rubbed her temple, like she was trying to press the thought out of her head. Yes, she said. I know it sounds odd, but the wedding's right around the corner. We've only ever been with each other, Jake. And that scares me. I don't want to feel trapped or like I missed out on something. I need room to grow. I stared at her so long. It felt like even the dust in the air stopped moving. And you expect me to be okay with that? You realize what you're saying, right? We're 3 weeks away from getting married, and now you want to talk about being with other guys. I said, trying to keep my voice level. I'm not talking about casual encounters in shady places, she shot back, sounding frustrated now. People do this. Open relationships, polyamory, it's real, and it works for some couples. Yeah, and sometimes it just ends in jealousy and heartbreak. I muttered, with a bitter smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Let's not kid ourselves. Her eyes narrowed. Emily had always been stubborn, proud, even. So that's it. You won't even think about it? Don't I have a right to say what I want our marriage to look like? I swallowed hard, trying to push down the anger rising in my chest. When you say open, what you really mean is you want freedom, but not for me. That's what you hinted at last night, isn't it? You want to go off and date around while I stay loyal? Is that the deal? I asked, my voice low. She tilted her chin, and her thick black hair slid off her shoulders like it was choreographed. It's different for women, she said. If you start seeing other people, you might feel like it's a fresh start and end up leaving me for someone else. But if I explore a little, it's just curiosity. I'm doing it for us. I love you, Jake. But I need more. Can't you understand that? She pleaded. Do you even hear what you're saying? I asked, rubbing my temples. You're telling me you get to step outside the lines, and I'm just supposed to smile and cheer you on like it's all fine? It's not like that, she insisted, her voice cracking just a little. This is about me feeling free. You've always said I'm confident, that I shouldn't hide who I am. Well, this is who I am. I want a life that doesn't weigh me down. Marriage weighs you down, I said with a dry laugh. She planted her hands on her hips. Is it so wrong to want it all? A loving husband and a little adventure in life, too. Some people would call that selfish, I said, my voice going flat. And those same people would probably say I shouldn't marry you at all. Her eyes lit up with a flash of anger. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up fast, almost knocking the coffee table over. It means if we're talking about open relationships right now, maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. You can't just cancel the wedding, she said, stepping in front of me so I couldn't leave. My parents have spent thousands on this. Yours too. My mom would lose it if I called it off. And your mother. I let out a sharp laugh. So that's it. You care more about your mom's reaction than about what's happening between us. She jabbed a finger into my chest. That's not fair. I'm being honest with you. Isn't that what you always said you wanted? Didn't you once tell me you'd rather hear the ugly truth than be comforted by a lie? I never thought the ugly truth would be that you can't commit to one person, I said. But fine. Let's see if I can deal with it. Let's see how I'd feel thinking about you getting close to your boss or spending extra time with some guy at work while I sit at home like a monk. Maybe that's what you want, someone spineless. Maybe that's why you picked me. She gave me a sharp look full of anger, but she didn't deny it. She just brushed past me and stood by the window. The argument fizzled out, but it left the room crackling with tension, like lightning had struck and the static never left. The next few days were weird. We barely talked. She stayed busy locking down wedding details, calling vendors, finalizing times, while I nodded like everything was fine, when inside, I was a mess. Every time I looked at her, there was this distant look on her face, like she'd already made up her mind about something she hadn't told me yet. One night, she came home late and muttered something about staying at work longer. But I noticed the top 2 buttons of her blouse were undone, and her cheeks were flushed in a way that didn't quite look like stress. Her hair was a little messy, too. That's when the suspicion really hit me. Something felt off. So I smiled and said, "Hey, how about dessert tonight? That little cafe on the east side you like." She blinked like I caught her off guard. "I'm beat," she said, dropping her purse on the table. "I just need a shower and bed." I forced a smile. Of course. As soon as she disappeared into the bathroom and the water started running, I walked straight to her purse. I was digging through her purse, hands shaking, when I found it, a sleek business card tucked into a side pocket. David Wilson, Regional Director, Summit Edge Technologies. Real high-end looking thing. On the back, in Emily's handwriting, a phone number and 4 simple words that knocked the air out of me. Had a great time. I just stood there, staring at it, heart pounding so loud it felt like it echoed off the walls. So she's not just thinking about it, I muttered. She's actually doing it. I slipped the card right back where I found it, careful not to leave a trace, and stepped away. My ears were ringing. My vision felt narrowed, like the room had shrunk. All I could see was her and this guy, David, maybe sneaking around after hours, laughing, touching. I didn't even know for sure if he was her boss, but the job title sure sounded high up. Too high up. Still, I couldn't go barging into the bathroom and start throwing accusations. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. Over the next few days, I kept my eyes open. She started coming home smelling like that expensive perfume she never used around me. She'd excuse herself to take phone calls in the bedroom. One night over dinner, she even brought him up casually, like it was no big deal. "David's so innovative," she said with a little smile. "He's teaching me a lot about sales strategy and growth. I feel like my career is about to skyrocket." The way she smiled, it wasn't just professional pride. There was something else behind it. Something smug. I felt sick. It became an obsession after that. If she was so set on this open relationship, why sneak around? Why the lies? Did she think I was that clueless? That weak? Then came a stroke of dumb luck. I was in the kitchen one night, looking for something to drink, when her phone started ringing from the couch. She'd left it there, screen up. The name David flashed across it. Then again, back-to-back calls. I picked it up and held it to my ear without saying a word. "Emily." The voice was low, amused. "I'm still thinking about earlier, you know? The way you said you're done with that fiancé nonsense. God, it's exhilarating. I want to see you tomorrow. How about we meet at my place this time?" I stood frozen. He kept talking like he didn't realize the call had connected. Then he paused. "Emily? You there? Hello?" I hung up and dropped the phone like it burned. Right then, Emily walked in from the bedroom wearing sweatpants and one of my old shirts, looking all relaxed until she saw my face. "Who was that?" she asked, as darting to the phone in my hand. Then her expression changed. She knew. "You answered my phone?" "I did," I said, trying to keep my voice even, but my face was burning. "David's quite the charmer, huh? Bold of him to leave voicemails like that." She went pale. Her mouth opened, then shut. Finally, she stammered. "I can explain. He's sort of my boss. He's just been mentoring me." "Helping you hide things from me?" I said with a bitter laugh. "Is that what mentorship looks like now?" "No, that's not what this is," she said quickly, stepping closer. I backed away. I brought up the open relationship because I was attracted to him, but I didn't plan. "Oh, stop with the nonsense," I snapped. "You're not just trying to open the relationship. You're being dishonest, Emily." Her face twisted with frustration. "Don't act like you're so perfect. I told you how I felt, and you dismissed it like I was crazy. You've always put your job first. Always told me to just wait. Well, David sees me." I clenched my jaw. "Sees you? Is that what you call it? Sounds more like he's using you." "Yes," she snapped. "And maybe I'm okay with that. Because at least he doesn't make me feel like I'm suffocating. At least he sees potential in me." "You know what?" I said, my voice low and tight. "You and David deserve each other." "Oh, I don't deserve to be judged by a guy too scared to change," she hissed. "All I ever wanted was a bigger life, something more than just surviving. I'm tired of waiting for you to get on board with that." I stood there, fist clenched, trying to hold back everything I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I walked over to the coat rack, grabbed my jacket, and said, "We're done. I'm calling off the wedding." Her eyes widened. "You can't just call it off." "Don't worry," I said, cutting her off. "I'll deal with my folks. You explain it to yours." I brushed past her and walked straight out the door into the night, heart pounding, barely able to breathe. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't just hurt. I wanted revenge. Her smug face and arrogant attitude haunted me all night. I couldn't sleep. Not because of the betrayal, but because of how easy she made it look. Like I'd been nothing more than a placeholder. I couldn't stop seeing them together, Emily and David Wilson. The images clawed at me day and night, feeding this bitter fire inside me. I kept picturing his smug, polished face, those designer suits, and that sleek black SUV I'd once seen in a photo on Emily's phone. The thing looked like it cost more than a house, tinted windows, custom leather, spotless. I imagined her laughing in that passenger seat, leaning into him, pretending this whole double life was normal. The thought turned my stomach. By dawn, I was hunched over my phone, scrolling through public property records until I found it, David's address. It was in one of those new luxury neighborhoods, the kind with high fences, private patrols, and enough cameras to watch a small country. I kept telling myself to stop. Let it go, I whispered. Move on. But I couldn't. Her arrogance, the way she acted like I was just some disposable part of her story, kept replaying in my head. And the more it did, the more I wanted to strike back. I wasn't some weak little fiancé she could humiliate and toss away. I still had some fight in me. And by the time I stepped outside that morning, I knew exactly where he lived and what I was going to do. Now, my job at the sanitation company gave me access to all kinds of trucks, especially the ones used for clearing out septic tanks and portable toilets. I'd driven them plenty of times. The smell? At first, it made you gag. But eventually, you either got used to it, or you learned how to use it. And that's what I planned to do. Over the next few days, I tracked her schedule from afar. She stayed late at work. I found out online that David was planning to host some out-of-town exec for dinner Thursday night, which meant he'd be away for a while. Perfect. I didn't want some light jab. I wanted to deliver something unforgettable. Something foul enough that they'd remember my name every time they caught a whiff of anything rotten. Then Wednesday night rolled around. Emily stormed into the apartment like she hadn't ghosted me for days. I was in the living room, shoving clothes into a duffel bag. Boxes were stacked near the door. She stopped in her tracks. "Jake," she said, softening her voice. "We need to talk." I didn't even look at her. "We've done enough talking." I zipped the bag shut. "I've got plans now." She stepped closer, arms folded. "My parents are furious you called off the wedding," she said. "They want their deposit back. I think you should help cover the cost. It's not fair for me to pay it alone." I stared at her. "You want me to pay for a wedding you blew up? That's rich." She rolled her eyes. "Don't act like you're some innocent victim. If you'd just been willing to grow up, maybe we could have made something work. Found a balance." "A balance?" I turned toward her, the anger swelling again. "You mean one where you spend time with your boss and expect me to just accept it?" "I never called you spineless," she snapped, defensively. "You didn't have to," I said, cutting her off. "You showed it in every smug look and whispered phone call." She let out a slow breath and shook her head. "You know what? I'm done trying to make you understand. You've always been small, just happy to pump sewage and go home like that's enough. Well, it's not enough for me. David gets that." I took a couple steps forward, and even though she held her ground, I saw her flinch just a little. "Enjoy your big shot, boss," I said. "But don't come crying when it all crashes down." She laughed, short and sharp. "It won't crash. David's 10 times the man you are." I gave her a slow nod. "Good. Then you're a perfect match." She spun around and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, fist clenched, heart pounding. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just breathed deep and let all that poison settle inside. Enough's enough, I thought. It's time. Thursday night arrived. I got my hands on one of the older sanitation trucks, the kind that still rattled like hell and stank like death. The tank was loaded with the worst sludge imaginable, pure human waste from a local restaurant's septic system that hadn't been pumped in months. Even with the windows down, the smell was brutal. But I didn't care. "This is perfect," I muttered. Filth for filth. I rolled through the city under cover of night, the orange glow of streetlights flashing across the truck's stained metal tank. It was nearly 9:30 p.m. when I reached the entrance to David's neighborhood. Gated community. High-end. Fancy badge-wearing guard in a tiny booth. He glanced at the truck like he'd seen 1,000 of them before. I mumbled something about a leak, emergency call for one of the properties. He barely looked at the clipboard and waved me through. Just like that. David's house was at the far end of the loop, nestled behind sculpted hedges and expensive lighting. The kind of place with tall, modern windows and a glowing white marble kitchen you could see right from the driveway. Everything about it screamed, "Look how perfect my life is." and I was about to change that. Parked right there in the driveway was that damn SUV, David's pride and joy. It looked like it just came off the showroom floor, polished so clean the porch light danced across it like glass. I clenched my jaw. I remembered Emily going on and on about how soft the seats were, how good the sound system was. Let's see how soft it feels after tonight, I thought. I jumped down from the truck and started uncoiling the heavy industrial hose, the kind usually used for pumping out the worst of the worst. The stink hit immediately, so strong it felt like it slapped me. I yanked a scarf over my nose and mouth and crept around to the back of the SUV. Flipped the valve from suction to discharge. The hose hummed to life in my hands. Here we go, I muttered. I pointed the nozzle at the back of the SUV and pulled the lever. A sick wave of thick, chunky sewage shot out with a wet smack, slapping the shiny black paint like it owed it money. The sound echoed through the quiet neighborhood. It was so loud it made me jump. That gorgeous paint job? Gone. Buried under layers of human sludge. I moved down the side of the vehicle, dragging the hose like a fireman from hell, laying waste with each spray. My mind screamed at me to stop, that this was too far, that no decent person would do this. But I kept going. I felt alive, like I'd finally stopped letting people walk over me. I circled the whole SUV, blasting the wheels, the windshield, even the roof. Brown liquid poured off the edges, dripping into foul puddles on the cement. David's beloved SUV now looked like it belonged in a landfill. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted the inside of his house to feel it too. I walked to the front door, tried the handle, locked, of course. But those fancy houses? All glass. I grabbed the crowbar I'd stashed in the truck and made my way to a side panel. Jammed the metal into the frame and worked it until I heard the crack of wood and the soft crunch of breaking glass. I cleared out enough shards to slide the hose through the gap. The stink pouring off that thing was unbelievable. I aimed it toward the center of the living room and flipped the valve again. Another disgusting wave burst from the hose, splashing across marble floors and designer furniture. It hit the walls, soaked the rugs, and started pooling like a sewage lake in the middle of the room. That's what you get, I whispered, nearly shaking. That's what you get for treating me like I was nothing. That's when I saw the headlights swing across the driveway. I froze. A sleek dark car pulled up fast, stopping by the curb. Driver's door opened. David stepped out, suited up like he'd just left a steakhouse, expression flipping from confusion to absolute horror in a second. He saw the truck, the sewage pouring from the side of his house. He gagged, throwing his hand over his nose. "What is going on?" he yelled. Jake stepped out, crowbar in hand. David's eyes locked on me, shocked and frantic. "You? Are you out of your mind?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "I'm insane. After what happened between you and my fiancé, you really think I'm the crazy one." He backed up fast, bumping into his now filthy SUV. "It wasn't like that. Emily told me you had an arrangement. She said it was mutual." I stepped forward, voice low and deadly. "She lied. You lied. And now you're going to see what drowning in your own filth really feels like." David made a move toward the truck, probably to shut the valve. I blocked him, slamming the crowbar against the metal with a flash of sparks. "Back off," I shouted, "or I swear, you're going to regret it." He froze, eyes darting between me and the hose. "You're out of control," he snapped. "I'm calling the cops." I gripped the crowbar, holding it like a warning. "Go ahead. Then I'll make sure everyone knows how you crossed the line with someone who worked for you." "Think your board of directors will like that?" "Your family." He hesitated, jaw clenched, the gears spinning in his head. "This isn't just some scandal," he growled. "You destroyed my property. You broke into my house." We both glanced back at the window. Inside, the living room looked like a scene from a nightmare. Furniture was floating, lights were flickering. The stench was crawling into the night air. And then more headlights. Another car screeched around the corner and slammed to a stop. It was Emily. She jumped out, heels clicking on the pavement, hair done up like she just left some fancy party. The smell hit her like a truck. She gagged. "Oh my God," she choked, hand to her mouth. "Jake, what did you do?" I turned slowly, chest heaving, heart pounding like a war drum. "You wanted excitement," I said, my voice cracking. "Is this exciting enough for you, Emily?" She stared at the SUV, now dripping in sludge. Her face twisted in horror. "You're insane," she whispered, stepping toward me, shaky. "I never wanted it to go this far." "It doesn't matter what you wanted," I hissed at her. "You disrespected me." You made me look like a complete fool while you sneaked around with him. You said you wanted an open relationship, but you were already involved with him, weren't you? Emily's face scrunched up like she couldn't believe I'd say that. You have no right to do this, she snapped. David's going to sue you for every penny you've got. I wouldn't count on that. David cut in, glaring at her now. You told me your fiancé was a weak nobody. Now he's out here threatening to ruin my life. You're blaming me? Emily barked, whipping around to him. You were the one who kept dragging me into your office after hours. You begged me to end things with Jake. Oh, that's rich, I said, letting out a dry, bitter laugh. Already turning on each other? Here, let me make it even worse. I stepped back to the truck and cranked the valve to full blast. A heavier, thicker wave of sewage gushed through David's shattered window, making a sickening splatter as it hit whatever was left inside. Stop it, you're acting crazy, David shouted, rushing toward me. He grabbed my arm, and we slammed into each other. The crowbar slipped from my grip and clanged on the driveway. David shoved me, but his foot skidded in the slick mess, nearly sending him flying into a pile of sludge. I broke free, shoved him back with all my strength. He stumbled back, groaning. Emily screamed, Jake, please, stop this. She ran to the truck, tried fiddling with the controls, but she was useless, too scared, too confused. The stink alone probably had her ready to pass out. David was wheezing, his face flushed with rage and queasy from the smell. That's it, he shouted, fumbling for his phone. I'm calling the cops. I stepped toward him slowly. Go ahead, I said calmly, but just remember, I've got recordings. I've got Emily bragging about your little hookups, and I'll make sure your entire board gets a front row seat. His hand froze mid-dial. You think they won't care that you've been using your job to chase after female employees? I asked, tilting my head. How many times have you done that, David? How many more skeletons are hiding in that office? His eyes narrowed, rage and panic fighting for control. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, I said. You kick this off. I'm just finishing what you started. Emily stood there, hands covering her nose, looking back and forth between us like she was trapped in a nightmare. You're both twisted, she said, voice shaking. I never should have opened my mouth. Never should have said anything. Silence, I snapped, eyes burning into her. You want to talk about mistakes? Let's talk about how you flaunted your affair right in front of me. You thought I was weak, someone you could step over. Thought I'd never fight back. I moved back around the truck, pulled the lever to slow down the flow. Enough was enough. The whole driveway was a swamp. Brown water and chunks floating everywhere. The window still oozed sludge into what used to be a luxury living room. The smell would never leave that house. David coughed hard, eyes watering part from the fumes, part from the fury. I'm going to have you locked up, he growled. You won't get away with this. Try me, I said, shrugging. I've got files, recordings, screenshots. Emily's messages. Your call logs. I'll hand them straight to your board and every one of your investors. While you're trying to clean human waste off your marble floors, I'll be the one telling your story. Emily turned on him again. This is your fault, she spat. If you hadn't. I insisted. David snapped. You were the one whining about your spineless fiancé every day. Oh, don't pin this on me. I shook my head and let out a joyless laugh. You two deserve each other. I turned and walked to the passenger side of the truck, ready to climb in. Enjoy cleaning up your mess. David lunged like he might try something again, but I looked straight at Emily and said quietly, tell him to back off, or he's going to regret it. Her eyes went wide. She grabbed David's arm in a panic. Don't. He's not bluffing. David was shaking, fists clenched, but he didn't move. I climbed in, slammed the door shut, and threw it in reverse. As I backed out, I saw them through the mirror, standing in the filth, their shoes sinking into the mess, covering their faces, looking like they'd just seen the end of the world. That shiny black SUV was now a biohazard, and the steady stream still pouring through the broken window was drowning everything they thought was perfect. I pressed the gas, the truck groaning as it rolled down the street. My chest was pounding, part fury, part relief, part something else I couldn't quite name. I didn't know what would happen next, but in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. They'd never forget the night I stopped being the fool. The streetlights flickered across the truck's windshield as I drove, their glow sliding over the glass like a slow-moving searchlight. The stench was still all over me, soaked into my clothes, clinging to my skin, but at that point, I couldn't care less. I'd let loose something dark and filthy, and there was no stuffing it back in the box. I pulled around to the back of the depot where I'd borrowed the truck. Nearly an hour had passed since I'd left David's perfect little castle in ruins. I climbed out, peeled off the rubber gloves, and wiped a smear of sludge off my cheek with the back of my sleeve. That's when my phone buzzed. I checked the screen. Emily. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. Curiosity got the better of me, so I took a look at her messages. You're out of line. You destroyed his house and his car. I can't believe you'd go this far. My parents are going to come after you for all the wedding costs if you don't fix this somehow. Do you hear me? I let out a dry, scratchy laugh and turned the phone off. Fix this somehow, I muttered to myself. Like that was even an option. There was no fixing what I'd done. That night left a crater, and David and Emily would be crawling through the wreckage for a long time. That was the point. I thought about what might come next. Maybe Emily's family would try to sue. Maybe David would try to flip the story, make himself the victim. But I wasn't worried. I had enough receipts, calls, texts, voice recordings to bury them both if they tried anything. If David even thought about exposing me, I'd go nuclear. Every dirty little secret would be front-page gossip at his precious company. I stared down at the dead screen in my hand, and that's when it hit me how empty I felt. All the rage, all the fire that had carried me through the night, it was gone, burned up. I walked away from the truck, shoving my hands in my jacket pockets. The silence out there felt weird. Not peaceful, just still. I wasn't proud of what I'd done. I didn't even feel satisfied. Just numb. In the back of my mind, I could still hear Emily's smug voice and David's threats ringing in my ears. But louder than all of that was this quiet little voice asking me, "What have you become?" I didn't have an answer. I just knew they'd humiliated me, and I'd made damn sure they felt that humiliation back. Tenfold. No apologies. No takebacks. That chapter was closed and burned to the ground. The night air was cool against my skin. Somewhere out in the distance, the city was humming along like nothing had happened. Life didn't care about the sewage or the screaming or the broken glass. It just kept moving. I reached my old pickup, beat up, loyal, and waiting near the depot like a faithful dog. I climbed in and caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face was still smudged with grime, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight. I looked like a stranger. So this is what vengeance looks like, I said under my breath. It ain't pretty. I turned the key, engine growling to life, and pulled onto the road. Behind me was a canceled wedding, a two-faced fiancée who wanted freedom on her terms, and a future that was always built on sand. But now I was free. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Free and reeking of the worst night of my life. I gave the mirror one last glance, then pressed the gas and disappeared into the blur of city lights.